Hi, everyone. I'm happy to virtually welcome you all to today's Ad Art Show 2020 Lunchtime POV from MVVO Art. I'm Emily Anastasi from the MVVO Art team, and it is my pleasure to introduce today's show titled Secrets of Successful Collecting, a series hosted by Debbie Wells of Artful Circle, featuring Candy Corman, writer at MVVO Art and art collector. Welcome, everyone. Let's get started.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here with you, Candy, and share your thoughts about art collecting and about how you feel about it. I think that's what we're really going to get down to it. So I want to start off with just talking a little bit about you. And why don't you explain a little bit about what kind of creative person you are in terms of writing, because I think that's a whole interesting aspect of your life.
Well, I guess I could describe myself as bifurcated. I write fiction and mainly mystery fiction. I don't make a living at it, but like many people in the arts, you leverage your skill set and to do something where you are making a living. So I'm a freelance writer, and I've been working with Maria with MVVO Art for about 4 years. And I love doing it because it combines my interest in art with my writing. So what could be better?
I agree with you 100%. People, you know, as a writer, you can understand a lot about what they're talking about with this ad art concept, which basically is that there are people that have to make a living, but they still have these creative outlets that they have. And I know one of the phrases you like to use is words matter. And I think you would agree that art matters too.
I would say art matters a great deal, and it connects with people on a deep emotional level, on an intellectual level, and it connects with people's imaginations. And to me, that's the supreme part of it.
Before we get into the art, I do want to ask you one thing. Can you tell us what Candy's monsters are?
Okay. A while back, I started writing novellas that were mysteries and comic mysteries and romantic mysteries, all based on the classic horror genre. So Dracula and Frankenstein. And I just did something that leverages picture of Dorian Gray. But they're not horror, gruesome, scary. They're just inspired by the classic gruesome, scary, and they go in different directions. And I thought they were fun to write. And I got talked into e-publishing them because it's very hard to get any conventional publishers interested in novellas, right, and even harder to get them interested in a mystery writer who's not James Patterson. So,
well, you may not be James Patterson, but you're a great Candy. So let me ask you about your interest in art. Now, I know it didn't start with you. You've been surrounding yourself with art through your family since you were very young. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, it actually starts before I was born. My father had an art gallery in the 1950s. And he showed abstract expressionists, and some of the people who were artists that he had in his gallery were basically Dad's friends when I was growing up. So Lester Johnson and Gandhi Brody, and names that were significant in the 50s and 60s and on. So none of my memories don't have art. You know, every place I've lived from the time I was a baby on had great art, interesting art, provocative art. My family would argue about art, and which of course is a great thing to argue about because you can have a lot of fun, you know, discussing whether Caravaggio is too emotional or not. And
okay.
No, I mean, these are things that, you know, it's not that it's a safe topic, it's that it's a stimulating topic. That's and it's right. Something you can share with people, and you are supposed to have your own opinions on it. And so basically, my dad, in order to have a family, sold the gallery to his former girlfriend, Virginia Zabriskie, who obviously made a very good success out of it. If you're familiar with her career, it's pretty amazing. And my dad just continued as a collector. And after he died, my mom asked me to deaccession a few pieces from the collection. And that's when I discovered this whole other end of the art world, which is selling pieces.
Right. The business end is something that a lot of the creative people just, right, it goes right over their heads. They're just not interested in it. Like you had said, your dad owned a gallery, but it was also a frame.
It was also a
framing
frame shop,
store.
which was a typical thing to do. And actually, I bought a piece just last year at a gallery that was also a frame shop.
Very common.
On the 8th floor of an office building in Chelsea. So there's still this thing of like this dual career thing. You have the gallery and the frame shop. And in this case, it was a gallery, a frame shop. And the man who was framing was also the artist, which, well, by the way, means you get a great frame on the piece.
That's true. That's true. And frames can be very expensive.
Yes.
Sometimes more than the artwork, depending.
Often.
One of the things that...
the other thing that I learned, which is something that I want to communicate to other collectors, is that it is really exciting to go to an auction. It is especially exciting when something you own is being sold and you have no idea whether anyone's going to like it or not. But it's a whole other corner of the art world in which valuation is the important thing, and provenance and all sorts of things that have no relevance for me 99% of the time, which is when I love it and I want it on my wall.
Well, that's what I have written down here, that when I spoke to you, your father had a great phrase: if you love it, frame it and put it on the wall, which
pretty much,
you seem to live by that. But just going back a little bit, when you were talking about provenances and things like that, I think a lot of our viewers don't really know what that is. Can you explain a little bit why that is so important to the value of a piece of artwork?
Well,
and what it is.
You need it if you're dealing with the IRS and inheritances and taxes and all that stuff. But basically, it's the paperwork that says when you bought a piece, how much you bought it for, and what exactly it is. Is it a bronze that was cast during the lifetime of the artist, or is it a bronze that was cast later? Totally different valuation, totally different story. The provenance is really the history of the piece.
It almost sounds like a resume. It
is. It's I would say it's like almost more like a biography, because it's like, what are you? Are you a print that's one of 20? Are you a one-off drawing on the back of a napkin that's not really signed? You know, it's like, what are you? Where do you come from? Who owned you? How did it get there? And I was unfortunate in that my father did not keep the greatest records on the planet, because he just loved his art and he didn't really care about what it was valued at later. But a few of the pieces that I did want to sell, he did have proper provenance paperwork, everything. And that made my life much easier. So I'm learning that the importance of that stuff.
So that is a very, people always say buy what you love, but keeping track of it, like the way you're saying, is an equally part of being a responsible art collector.
Yes, especially when all of a sudden you're landed with a bunch of things that, you know, some of them are valuable and then some of them might not be valuable. And the big realization, the light bulb moment for me was, something is only as valuable as it is at that moment that you want to sell it, and there's someone who wants to buy it. So
exactly. Very true.
So a comparable value of a comparable piece by the same artist from the same period of time, it's a comparable value. The value, the hardcore number is just what somebody is willing to pay. It's interesting.
And a lot of the reasons why you are picking things also for what you love. So now I know that there's two pictures behind you that are very special to you. So if you want to explain the story of both of them, they're both fabulous stories. And I love the fact that you took the time and the thought to put them together because you thought they worked well together.
Well, the one on top, the pastel, is a Wolf Kahn, and it was given to me on my 30th birthday by my father.
And Wolf
And
Kahn actually didn't die that long ago, if I remember correctly.
a few
So
months
last
ago,
year?
just a few months ago, and I went to a show of his in Chelsea about 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I realized I had no paperwork on this, because my father he knew Wolf Kahn. He went to visit him. They weren't close friends, but they were friends. So he
Mm-hmm.
went in and he bought a piece and he got it beautifully framed and gave it to his daughter, and that was it. As far as he was concerned, job done. But I realized that I should get some valuation, some comparable idea, so that when I die, there's some record of when and how and where. Um, Things in the art world are much less casual than they were when my father was coming up in it. So he kind of maintained his old view of these things. I like to forget about them, but I have to recognize that sometimes they're important. Underneath it is a little drawing by a friend who is a children's book writer and illustrator, and it's called Good Dog. And I just couldn't resist putting the dog with the trees.
It's a line drawing, so it's a little hard to see.
It's a little hard
we
to
get
see.
the idea.
It's just, she did something marvelous from an artistic point of view in a very few number of lines, achieving this gesture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called Good Dog. And it is a good dog. And I'm a cat person. And if a cat person likes a good dog, then it's a very good dog.
Well, you put your dog next to trees. Seems very appropriate to me.
But the other thing, for the most part, is that they're both very quiet pieces. And I have a lot of my more dramatic pieces in more dramatic spaces in my apartment.
So now, how much of your collection is inherited from your parents versus what you've done? Like, what was the journey from one to the other, the transitional point?
Well, it's actually, they cross, because when both of my parents were still alive, I had already bought a couple of vintage travel photographs from the turn of the 19th century.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
So, I mean, instead of 21st century, the other. And so I had those, and I had some beautiful woodcuts by Phyllis Hirschberg, who was my friend Wendy Hirschberg, who's also an artist. Her mother did this beautiful series of illustrations from Candide by Voltaire, which is in the 42nd Street Library's illustration collection.
Mm-hmm.
And I have two of those. And I have a number of pieces by Wendy, who's a sculptor, and really beautiful, a couple of bronzes. And there's one that's above my head this way, so you can't see it. And but I have some works by Wendy. Now, those were all collected while my father was collecting too. Then when he died and then my mom died, I was like, I can't buy any more art. I've got a closet full of art. I literally have a gallery rack that you will see in the back room of any art gallery.
Mm-hmm.
And it's packed tight with art that I don't have any room for on my walls. So there was a point in which I said, it's okay. You can buy something, you can venture out again. And since then, I got a beautiful Peter McCaffrey, very dramatic piece of a raven made in black ink and silver. And I got it's a very soft watercolory kind of ink and watercolor by Carlos Aponte, who, again, works as a cartoonist. I have maybe one of my connections to Ad Art Show is that I don't have any shred of a prejudice against somebody who's making a living doing something commercial while they're creating art.
Well, if they're creative people and they're executing pieces that speak to you, that's what you're attracted to. And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, and the backstory of the starving artist or the Peggy Guggenheim who sweeps in and makes Jackson Pollock possible. I'm not Peggy Guggenheim.
You don't want to do that?
It would be fun, but it would be really fun. But I think just collecting work by people who you respond to their work. The backstory is an interesting story. It's context, blah, blah, blah. But for me, the art talks first and primarily.
That seems to be a consistent theme with most collectors that we talk to. They have to live with the art. And if you're living with it, it has to feel comfortable to you. It doesn't matter what the price is or how famous the person is or things like that. You want what speaks to you and what fits in with how you want to express yourself and how you want to live. So I think you're doing a marvelous job. But I did hear two things. I heard that you don't just live by yourself with your art. You have two little feline assistants.
They're a couple of years ago I adopted two rescue cats, and they were rescuing me because I was at a low point in my life. I had just broken my wrist and I wasn't doing anything, and I had canceled the trip to Italy and terrible things. But they're a little shy and peculiar, bordering on completely crazy, but they're very entertaining, and they are, I think, immune to what is on the walls.
You don't have to worry about them destroying anything.
They're not interested. What they are interested in is a clay sculpture of a cat that my grandmother made, which one of them curls up with on a regular basis. I do not understand why, but I have photographic evidence of Sebastian hanging out with a clay cat.
That's funny. Well, I know that you're surrounding yourself with art now in this apartment with your cats, but rumor has it that you're moving to a new location with bigger wall space.
Yeah, this is really exciting, and I'm not going to have any money to buy art because I'm spending money renovating an apartment. But boy, oh boy, am I going to have wall space and everything. Oh, I'll be taking the Jean Tingley out of the closet that was my parents, and I don't know where I'm going to put the art, but it's going to like pop on the big expansive wall, and I'll have the wall filled up in no time at all. That's what I'm afraid of.
The last collector we spoke to, Laura Scholar, said that she has not 1 inch of wall space left in her entire apartment. And when somebody says you have to have this, somehow she finds more room. So I have a feeling you'll do the same.
Well, I actually have decided that after having had too much on my walls before, that I'm not going to rotate the collection like a volleyball team. But I am going to make a point of taking things out of the closet, putting them on the wall, and just sort of switching things out. Maybe I'll do it twice a year. Mm-hmm. I'll just switch out a few things. I took a Jakob Steinhardt out of my bedroom. It was Jonah getting swallowed by the whale. Mm-hmm. And it was too dark to live with that during a pandemic.
That's true.
So I replaced it with something
happier.
Yeah, it wasn't happy, but it was definitely, not getting swallowed by a whale. So the idea of what will go with what else is the big question.
Right. So do you make all these decisions on your own, or do you have someone help you, or how do you know what to put where? Is it all intuitive on your side?
I will say that I will call in artist friends to say, am I nuts, or will this look good, or but I'm the arbiter of it because I'm the one living here.
Yeah, that's right.
But I have at different points asked, especially Wendy Hirschberg, the sculptor, to come in and help me decide where to hang certain things. Just because it's good to rely on someone else as a sounding board about where things go.
Okay, we're going to end this on one more important question, because obviously we're doing this for MVVO and the Ed Art Show. And one of the things that I think that Maria, who's the CEO, was very prolific about was that she realized how important virtual viewing was going to be, to have basically a virtual gallery, which is now at the Oculus, which is where this lecture virtually is taking place. And I was just curious what you thought of the difference between something like that and like when your dad owned his frame store and it was a brick and mortar place. What do you think are the benefits, advantages, disadvantages, just a little yin yang of the whole thing, what your opinion is, because you've experienced both.
Well, I didn't experience my father's gallery, but that's
you didn't. Okay.
Way before me. I mean, he had to sell that in order to get a job, in order to have family. So way before me. But
Okay.
but I was going to art galleries from as long as I can remember. I just in the stroller I was going to art galleries. But the I think you have to change with the times, and I think that the buying online is a tool, and it is not the only tool, but it is very useful. And one of the pieces that I purchased on my own, I initially saw on the website of the gallery. I went to the gallery with, I sent an email saying I'd like to see this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of surprised them by picking the biggest, most dramatic of the three that I wanted to see. But the point is that it was like an initial opening bid for me to I have yet to buy something completely from the internet, but I anticipate that happening very soon. Whether it's on Artsy with the MVVO gallery or not, I don't know yet. I took a peek at the art, and there's a couple of things I want to take a second look at. And that's the other thing. You have to give yourself the freedom to take a second look, to take a beat, to grow some kind of relationship with the art.
Well, I think we can both agree that this is a journey, and that you're right. Throughout time, people have chosen artwork in different venues, and we're now, like it or not, maybe the pandemic pushed it forward a little faster than maybe would have happened on its own. But we're looking at artwork to choose in a different way. But once it's in your home and in your possession, it takes a life of its own.
Yeah, and the relationship changes. Your life changes, and you look at things differently, and that's why I think that the art speaking for itself is so much more important than the biography of the artist. Whether the artist works in advertising or teaches or whatever, they're communicating directly to you through that work of art, and you should enjoy that.
Well, I think you've got the heart of a true art collector and a true art lover. And being an artist myself and in the art world, we thank you, because if artists didn't have an audience to appreciate it, it wouldn't go very far. So you're just as special as an artist. You're the grateful audience, and you're taking it into your home and making it part of your life. And I think that's what a true art collector really is all about. So I want to thank you. Is there anything you wanted to add before we sign off?
No, I think this was. I can't imagine adding another thing to it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you, and I hope that we get to see more of you and learn more about you. And we wish you a lot of luck in your new apartment too, because it sounds like you're going to have a lot of room to play and display all your artwork again.
I hope so. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's Emily, so I think it's time to say goodbye.
Yep.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Debbie and Candy. It was a great conversation.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All POV interviews will be available on mvvart.com and on MVVOart's YouTube channel. We encourage you all to tune in tomorrow for the next episode in Bennett's series, Creative Ambassadors in the Ad Industry, featuring Michael Tong, founder of the Culture LP and strategy director at Giant Spoon, as well as Michael Liao, founder of Slim Cinema. We encourage everyone to go to our website and view our fundraiser on Custom Ink and buy a branded t-shirt to support City Harvest during Hunger Action Month. If you get the chance to visit the Oculus at the West World Trade Center and see the Ad Art Show 2020 come to life on the screens, stop by Italy for a free coffee and dessert.